focus on Craig's software, and he specifically states reimagining ham radio in the digital information age. We started with analog signals and we moved to the digital realm, but not exclusive of one or the other. And that's where this really comes in handy. Origins of ham radio. Basic slide shows vacuum tubes, CW, and people working together, communicating as we've talked about. That's how everything started. Things move along. Each and every person here has a different interest, some of them parallel. We have many. Sharing contacts with QSL cards, contests and field days. Some of you do nothing but contests and like to participate in winter and summer field days. We also have mentorship and protocols. What that is this helps build what to many say the hobby. It's also a lifelong, in many ways, relationship to people within the community and beyond. We've talked about emergency radio communications. We've talked about teaching and so forth. And that is where the mentorship portion comes in hand. And that's what this presentation is about, because we need to mentor others into the ham radio space. And what I found was I wanted to focus on initially the technicians, those that are newly licensed technicians and those that haven't been licensed. How many people here are technician level or unlicensed? Okay, this is basically a way to get started utilizing those privileges that you have in that space and not just wait till you get your general or your extra class, but be able to start participating in many different ways. We also have expanded into ham radio for space communications. I think Gary is A1UE, has probably talked to more satellites than anyone here. Maybe I'm wrong. But that is a great way to communicate both digitally as well as via voice. Jim asked in the beginning, how many people here have used FT8? Well, DigiPi does more than just FT8. And this essentially has seen a big boost in adaptation because of the fact that a 2 meter or a 440 link would let you communicate at a relatively inexpensive level. FT8 being pretty much HF related will also get you to the next level, but you need to be licensed for general and above for that. That's where it really comes in. Technicians, well, my bench and probably every others have looked somewhat like this over time, but with digital communication modes, we have APRS. Gary Thomas presented probably a couple of years ago, APRS presentation, spoke of APRS Droid to use on your Android phone and how to get started in communicating in that particular way. This ties that presentation in, and Gary also presented a few months ago FT8. So we're tying those two areas together, and the DigiPi allows a multi-mode communication for all those processes. What we have, WinLink. Well, WinLink is used in emergency communications, but it's also classified as radio mail, email. So you have every day use email off your phone, off your laptop, et cetera, et cetera. And this gives you the ability to do email over radio. In the Apple world, it's called radio mail. In the Android world, we have other designations for that, but WinLink is used on Windows, but it's also used on Linux, and that's what the DigiPi will also do. That is, let you type messages and transmit them to the network, if you will, and those messages will then eventually make their way to their destination. And that was used heavily in emergency communications. JSA call gives you the ability to do keyboard chatting. And that is a queued chat, not real time in the sense of as you type one key, it shows up on your destination. DigiPi will let you do that as well. There's also the ability to connect to GPS if you wanted to have a radio such as my Icom 705. You can move mobile and get GPS tracking. Otherwise, you're setting your configuration just with a fixed longitude and latitude. What does this? Well, DigiPi is a software written by KM6LYW, and a total of 2025 we released the version 2.0 product, which is essentially he's a ham, not really selling the product. He has a Patreon page that if you donate, say $1 to his Patreon page, you can download the software, and he provides fantastic support. He is constantly on the groups, answering ham's questions, assisting with configuration, and making the product really usable. And you will get a password to download once you've essentially spent your dollar, if that's all you can afford for ham radio. And that brings us to hardware that's needed to run DigiPi. Well, DigiPi is basically a SD card based image that is used on a Raspberry Pi. How many people here have worked with Raspberry Pis? Pretty much all of you. Well, the nice advantage of this particular project is you can use a Pi 2.0. This is all as big as it is, and run everything you need to run on this particular product. You don't need a Raspberry Pi 5 or 4 or 3. You can. They make many different products. A Pi hat, if you will, it's a device that connects to the particular Raspberry Pi you have, and it's functional, but you don't need that level of hardware to do it. You can do something as simple as a 2W. Well, the actual DigiPi image is located on the SD card, which we put in the Raspberry Pi. It boots up. It comes configured with everything you need to do to get your first boot. But before you do that, after you've downloaded your image, you need to choose an imager. There's a couple to use. I use the Galena Etcher. Also, the Raspberry Pi imager from Raspberry Pi will let you write images as well. You're not downloading an actual OS from the Raspberry Pi site. Everything you need is in that DigiPi download that you spent your dollar for, and that becomes the entire operating system. And this is using the Raspberry Pi imager. When you do that, you're actually going to use a custom image, and you'll point to the location that you downloaded the DigiPi image from, and use that, and it will write the image to your SD card. Now, the document that I gave you is not slide by slide what we're showing up here. What it is more or less a lab type setup with part numbers that I used to create and actually get a DigiPi going. So you're welcome to take that parts list, or anything that you want. It doesn't have to be specifically that. All you need is really a Raspberry Pi, an SD card, an image, and some cables to connect up, as we have many examples showing here. The Pi, excuse me, Pi 2.0 is the recommended zero. The actual zero itself is not good for this particular application. With the Pi 2.0 with Wi-Fi is what's required. So at that time, it was $28 for Raspberry Pi 0 2W with the headers pre-soldered. The radio, well, Baofeng, which I have here, as well as here. These were $18-19. These are the new 5RM, which are higher output power. There's also a little bit better selectivity on the receive side. So those particular radios are great to get started. Okay. Top end radio like a IC ICOM 705 or a Yaesu 2980 or above, you can configure to work with DigiPi, no problem. I have an extension here, and that connects to my outside antenna, which I didn't bring with me tonight. So that lets me connect with my setup here, this radio and DigiPi. It's able to reach essentially Connecticut, Dana, Underhills, KV1AV, and I can communicate all over the world with the DigiPi. Case is pretty good to have. Then you can choose whatever you like. It's not that expensive. I've got a few of them here that I configured my units for, and they work quite well. Those are also included in the handout. Display is not mandatory, but it makes life a lot easier to look at. How do we connect an HT with a K-type connector? Well, there's many different ways. What we have up here is called AIOC, which is an all-in-one cable, and that is manufactured. In this case, I ordered from NE6D and ordered those products from them. You get them in two configurations: one pre-soldered, which is great if you're doing an HT, or one unsoldered, which means you can solder those connectors yourself. You can also configure to another type of a radio, like a Yaesu or mobile radio, and cable it accordingly to that radio without using those K-type connectors. And so there's a lot of flexibility there. So depending on what you're going to do, like I say, most people would probably go with the pre-soldered one, but there's also some other options. This particular device adds a USB device to your radio. It's from allscan.info. And it's got the same type of connector. It's easy to plug into the K-type connector. And this is your beta connectors for USBs. You can see. If anyone follows temporary offline radio, Steve, on the YouTube channel. He has what's called the Toads interface, that's also supported. Now, this Icon 705 doesn't have the K connector. What it does have is I added the USB module to it, so it's USB-C rather than the mini that those radios came with. And so I can connect directly with the USB-C to my Icon. This gives you really superior performance in that regard. So there's lots of options to connect. You can also specify the DigiPi hats, and there's probably about 10 to 15 ways that you can specify your interface. You're going to need cables, a lot of cables, but it all depends on what you have. And the packet specifies some things that I found work well. And I had sent these configurations to Craig in California, had him review the document and pretty much bless the configuration such that those were really good ways to get people started in working with the DigiPi. So it's up to you what you use. The recommendation is that you put ferrites on everything because of RF. So especially with Baofeng radios, they're not the greatest. They're 15 to 19 bucks, but that is really highly recommended. NH6V provides some cables. Those are USB to USB-C. I have that connected on one of the radios. You can order those cables directly from him if you order the ALIC. In the back of your packet, there's some pictures I printed low quality because I wanted to save the ink tree, and this is a little bit better quality. But this shows a fully functional Baofeng radio with an orange AIOC card, the orange 3D printed shell, which you can download the STL files from the source and print them yourself. The Raspberry Pi 2W without the display. Again, you don't need it. You're going to run in a headless configuration. Headless meaning you're going to talk to it from your laptop or your phone or a tablet, and you're not going to actually plug into it with keyboard and mouse. So it's going to be offline, either connected to Wi-Fi or not. And I have a portable battery bank there. You can use pretty much anything. Got multiple ones here, and that lets you provide 5 volts to the DigiPi. What I have up here is a buck converter off of the Smitty switch, and I'm also plugging 5 volts into the Baofeng, which is a USB-C connector. So I'm powering both the radio and the DigiPi with that battery, bio battery at this point. Okay, we moved up to another radio, a mobile radio. This is the VTech. Frequency we were talking on is 144.390, but essentially we have a similar setup. But the difference here is that this radio, which is the 25X2, has the ability to plug a secondary cable that you can purchase from them, and it will let you plug the microphone here, hand mic, as well as digital input, a K2 connector. This is actually a K2 port. So the AIOC plugs into that, and here's our friendly DigiPi working accordingly. So there's many different ways to do this. You don't need an HT. You can use a lower radio. That's a 25-watt radio, and I can hit a long way with 25 watts. This was one that I had set up earlier with Smitty's stand. That was a actual radiodity radio. When you're doing HTs, there's a couple things. I had to set this to Vox. The Valfangs I didn't have to set to Vox. But you need to set the squelch to like 0 because the receive portion of the Valfang and the radiodity does not receive that well. You lose decodes if you're not, your squelch is not shut down. When you first boot the DigiPi, after you've loaded that image, you plug it in and you apply power, you're going to need to pick an automatically pre-configured hotspot name called DigiPi. That particular hotspot is created by the software itself. So you don't have to worry about connecting to your Wi-Fi. If you're working somewhere out in the field, you have portable setups, like this case holds 2 Baofeng radios, antennas in the DigiPi product. You essentially don't need to have internet to be able to work. If your radio can hit another repeater, DigiPeer, then you'd be able to communicate beyond. But at this point, when you first boot, pick your DigiPi, and you're going to get an address of 10.0.0.5. That's the default address for the DigiPi. So with your phone, with your laptop, your tablet, you will get the first screen for the DigiPi. Now you'll see we have many different let's see. No, the pointer didn't work. Essentially, we have the suite of software that's available on that little Pi20W. We have APRS, terminal node controller, and an iGate. An iGate connects to the internet if you have the DigiPi configured for Wi-Fi. And you can operate this HF. If you connect to an HF radio and you have the proper license, you'll be able to reach far beyond what you can do with 2 meter 440. APRS web chat is what Gary and I have used more recently. AX.25 packet radio, you can actually configure a bulletin board and people can log into that. I worked with Corey N1XWS in Adams, and they have quite a robust AX25 network in the northwestern part of Massachusetts, and they're able to communicate. I logged into his through the internet, not directly with RF, but it works quite well. WinLink email server. You can make this DigiPi be a WinLink email server. So you can communicate to it, connect to it with your Windows WinLink or with another DigiPi. The PAT WinLink email client, that is the actual client for radio mail for Linux, and that will run and talk to WinLink servers all over the world. RDOT modem isn't used as much anymore, but you have the capability of setting this up as RDOT. WSJTX FT8, we talked about that. Gary presented that during his last presentation. You can do FT8 here. Again, you could talk to other people on 2 meter 440. There's not that much traffic in those frequency bands, but if you're licensed for general and above, you can connect your HF radio to this and bill accordingly. Slow scan TV. I haven't done that yet on this device, but you can do SSTV, image downloads, and even transmissions, all with the little DigiPi. And JS8 call, right there. Normally you would spend a tremendous amount of time downloading, configuring, doing all this to get your system to work. This is all done in one image, and all you do is hit the particular radio button. And it turns green, and you have that functionality. You hit it again, it turns it off. So where am I at with this? First thing you do once you've booted this is you're going to click the initialize link. That initialize link is very important because that lets you put in user-specific information. If you make a mistake, your best option is to reflash the SD card and start over, okay? But you're normally not going to make many changes, if any, after that. You're not going to, you only see this initialize screen once. For example, after you've hit initialize, you're going to put in your call sign, your WinLink password, if you have one. If not, you can get an account. APRS password, which is tied to your call sign. There's a link here to actually generate that password. So everybody that has a call sign has a unique APRS password. You need to register yourself in the APRS system with that password. Specify your grid square, longitude, latitude, whether you have a GPS device. In the case of ICOM, it's on TTY ACM1. Your AX25 node password, that's the default ABC123. You can set passwords for people to log in accordingly. The screen type display, that particular setting there is for these little displays that we have up here that's also included in your booklet. Now, the fun part is picking your interface. Again, what I said is that there's plenty of choices. USB connected radio, that's what I chose for my ICOM 705. These would be like DigiPi type Raspberry Pi hats. AIOC, that's the orange device that we talked about. DigiRig Mobile and other methods to connect with GPIO pins on your Raspberry Pi. You're free to experiment. This supports it. It's totally awesome. You don't have to go through and try to regenerate software every time you do it. You need to make a change. I got multiple SD images with multiple radios, and it's really a piece of cake. Checklist. I put a checklist in the back of your document. All the items to make sure you've had. This antenna is a Diamond 200 XA. I have this stuck in the backyard along with my other 2-meter antennas and radios. And I'm pretty much dedicated that to packet radio as well as working with the Digi. And it's got good range. The radios are great places for the snow to build up in the last couple storms. You know, they're about this big, okay? So at that point, we have cleaned those off and they work quite well. And now we have a short video from Craig. That's Craig, the author.
All right, welcome back to KM6LYW radio, show about amateur radio or ham
Looks
radio.
like we got some synchronization issue, but
in the information age. And today we are going to build the cheapest possible amateur radio data
That's a shame.
transceiver. This does every data mode there is. This is going to email, SMS, WSJTX, FTA, JSA call, every mode we've got. All here in a portable package with a battery, a radio, a transceiver, all in one cable. Let's build it this time the KM6 LYW radio. Yeah, welcome back. Still keeping waiting with the bumper music. All right, let's put this thing together. Let's make this operational. All right, so this isn't going to be the best radio data transceiver hotspot you can get, but it is going to be the cheapest, okay? And we're going to start with the Baofeng UV5 bar. That is the actual radio itself. It's a handy talk in your handheld unit, 5 watts. It's $23. That's an incredible value. Now the receiver is a little dodgy. You're going to need to be around some strong signals to get it to work. But for $23, that's a huge value. So that's the Baofeng. Now you also need a Raspberry Pi computer to hook up to your radio if it's going to be a Wi-Fi hotspot for data modes. And this is the Raspberry Pi Zero 2 wireless, $18. $18 for a full-blown computer that you can hook up to your amateur radio. That's cheap. You can get them all over the place. This just happens to be a Pi shop. Now, the third thing you need is some sort of radio interface adapter. Now, since we're using the Baofeng, there's a two-prong Kenwood interface on the side here. That sets us up to buy the AIOC. That's the all-in-one cable. This interface is your Raspberry Pi to your radio using this USB cable, which sticks into the side of the Pi here, and that's it. Okay, so these three things are what you need: the Pi, the AIOC, and the radio. Now you can get this little screen here, and you should get the screen just because it's so cool. The screen's like $12. It just pushes right onto the pins on the Raspberry Pi. And the construction, the assembly here, I mean, it doesn't even deserve a video. It maybe took me 40 seconds to assemble all this thing and just kind of do some cable management too, just to get this online. The battery, I'm going to assume you have, if you can't get one with a PD or power delivery port, that way you can actually power your radio, a 5-watt radio, using a PD port on this USB-based battery. And of course, the Raspberry Pi Zero 2 wireless consumes almost no power. We're talking like 150 milliamps. So this is the ultimate cheap and low power radio data transceiver hotspot that you can possibly get. One thing I have to mention, obligatory, the software actually running on that DigiPi, it's an SD card. I guess we should add that price. SD card, what is that, like $5? Any SD card will work. Get the digipi.org amateur radio software. That's what's running here. It turns your radio basically into a data hotspot, so you can access it with any Wi-Fi device or web browser. This can be totally offline. This is like this, post-apocalyptic prepper kind of thing. Completely portable, really low power. All you need is some sort of Wi-Fi device. It becomes the hotspot, or you put it on your home network. So anyways, put all this together, get your phone or your web browser out, and let's do some quick operations. All right, so this DigiPi amateur radio data hotspot has way too many known modes to demonstrate in a single video. But let's say you're new to amateur radio and you just want to do some real practical stuff. Maybe you just want to send an SMS message, an email, real simple stuff like that. So we put the SD card into our DigiPi initialized link here. We enter our call sign and a bunch of other information about how we want to operate our transceiver. And what we want to do now is start the APRS. This is a global packet radio network. It's on VHF 144.39 in America, 144.8 in Europe. We're also going to start the web chat service here, which makes it so we can just use our web browser to do APRS packet operations, send that just to other radios, other phones, basic email stuff with this. To see the interface, you come down here and click on web chat. Here we have a texting interface like you would just see on your iPhone, right? Amateur radio doesn't have to be that hard. So DigiPi is providing the APRS web chat interface, and we can do real simple stuff like send a message to a call sign called SMS. We can set that for Y11, and I've actually set up an alias for my phone. You can put any phone number here. It could be 555-123. Or it could be 8675309. But you can set up an alias. So I don't give everyone my phone number and say, hey, this is an SMS via RF. Now what's going to happen is this web browser is actually connected to DigiPi over wirelessly, over Wi-Fi. It could be via a hotspot. And this is going to transmit that packet. The Pi is going to generate the packet. It's going to go through the cable and transmit out the radio. We've got a real dummy load antenna here because I know I've got digipeters nearby in the APRS network here in California. So I don't really need a great antenna system, but for you, especially the Baofeng, get an external antenna, get a real antenna. Okay, this one's just very cool demo demonstration purposes. So I've got infrastructure around me, so I can get away with this little antenna here. So I'm going to go ahead and send this message. Here we go, send. And we can see, I'll turn the monitor on so you can hear it. I sent the message, and sure enough, here it is on my radio. It says this is an SMS over RF. So there's no way that's not social stuff. Anyways, it's sent, and I can reply to say, this is a reply. And now this is going out over cellular networks, okay? I just said that now. And that's going to come through on the radio here in a minute. But what I know you're thinking, great, Craig, you did an SMS message, you know, I can do that right now. I can do stuff on the web with web browser. But let's pretend there's no internet. Let's pretend there's no power. All you have is this little device right here. You can do all of this with no power, no internet. It's completely standalone. And I've just sent an SMS message to and from my phone here using nothing more than an amateur radio. You can do other cool stuff like email. Let's go over to go ahead and turn these off. There's Pat, WinLink email client. I want to highlight Pat actually. Pat is software that you could fix. So basically it's a web, replying to a website. It gives you a full-blown email interface. Okay, it just makes email so much easier on the radio. And of course it works on the DigiPi and the data transceiver. So Pat version 19.1 is out there. Thank you guys so much for putting this together. This is such great software, great community too. So what I want to do here is just turn on, let's turn on the Pat WinLink email client. And this basically turns our transceiver into a website that does email. You'll also notice that it fired up an AX.25 node networking because that's what we're going to use here on VHF. Now on Pat, we want to use we're going to use 145050 for our frequency because we've got a pretty robust AX.25 network here in California. Lots of email servers on that frequency. So we're going to come down here. We click on Pat, and we've got an email interface, right? You've got your inbox, your outbox, sent, archive, actions. This doesn't have to be hard, you guys. Right? It's status thing down here. You know, this isn't 1980s. We can do all this cool stuff with using the Raspberry Pi. So what I want to do is, I've already got an email here. I can read it, but I'm going to go ahead and check my email. So I'm just going to say connect. Now I need to connect to a radio on this frequency, and they're all based on call sign. In fact, I've got a WinLink email server called KM6YW-10. It's going to use the AX.25 transport. I'm just going to click connect. All right, we're connecting. Off we go. Make sure I'm on the right frequency so you can hear it. I've got a monitor going. I hope that's not too loud. We're checking email. Now you can see down here the status of what's going on. And it says, it basically just logged in, checked email, there's nothing there, and then it disconnected. So what I can do is say, compose, and you can send this to a call sign, or you can send it to an actual email address. So I can send it to KM6LW and say, this is a test, and hey, I'm sending an email over RF. It's really this simple. And I do post and do an action connect, and basically do the exact same thing, only this time it's going to transmit my message. And this is see it's connected. We're watching the little log down here. And there's a message that's going to be going out. You don't have to understand what this stuff is. This is transmitting, this is the test. You can see our data transceivers going wild. They're completely wireless all over. It's Wi-Fi and all that. So there's a Wi-Fi transceiver in here, and then we've got the amateur radio right there. So we just did it, no problem. We just sent an email and checked their email. So this is Pat, and it's pretty cool stuff. Pat software, Pat WinLink email client. Totally cool. Hey, patrons, you guys are killing it. So there are a lot of data users out there. And the reason I know that is because every patron of KM6LYW radio gets a copy of the DigiPi SD card image that we just demonstrated here today. So there are thousands of you. We've got the Mark, Steve, Swift, Keg, Andrew, Jeremy, Paul, Brian, Chris, Leon, Jim, Steve, Buddy, Kevin, Robert, Aaron, Scott. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. So all of these guys have DigiPis just like this one. And, it's going to be a large format, on a 0. We did it as cheap as possible today. I would really encourage you to upgrade your radio first. I mean, that's a $23 radio. Yes, it technically works, but you know, if you get one of these super heterodyning kind of radios rather than an SDR radio, I think the receive is going to be a lot better. Don't get me wrong, the transmit is just fine on the whole thing, but it's subject to descents. So just be aware of that. You're not going to pull it in packets. That if you've got a nearby DigiPeter in your area, yeah, it's fine. Especially if you can get the antenna outside. So thank you, patrons. I really appreciate it. Once you're a patron of the channel, you get access. You're able to download, if I can find it. It's actually digipi.org. I'll find it here. Digipi.org. And you go ahead and download that SD card image and do all of the modes that we just talked about today. Build a super cheap radio data transceiver system. And so anything in the Patreon account, yeah, that's the SD card image. So it's some kind of way for me to give something kind of back patron for the channel. Really appreciate it, guys. Hey, my name is Craig, amateur radio call sign KM6LYW. I'm in California and I'm clear.
All right. Have anybody got any questions?
You're saying you have to hit the DigiPi button. So can you have a hotspot as well and use your own?
Yes, basically, I was trying to connect to the internet here. Did not achieve any success. I've got Starlink on the car and I'm out of range because I can't drive close enough through the windows here.
And that would work.
That would work. Yep. Any other questions? Any interest?
Interest, yes.
Okay, your quiz, a couple questions there. You probably couldn't answer until after seeing the presentation. The bottom line is that with a very inexpensive setup, you can get started with packet radio. Go ahead.
If you had a club group project, what would be involved? What would you have to buy?
Basically, if you're gonna do Pi 2 zeros, recommend case, cables, an SD card, and then a power source, which can be battery, can be a battery pack that you may have. Everybody probably has something like this. This is one with the PD port. It gives you more power. You can also use an AC powered one, and that will work as well. So those are the three things pretty much that you need radio wise. Obviously, you need a radio. Go ahead, easy.
Could this be done on a Saturday?
Definitely. The number of times that I've reflashed and rebuilt, we're talking, once you've developed a lot of experience in that, with those free download etchers and imagers, you basically can prepare yourself with a couple images. If you mess up, make a mistake, no problem. Just reflash it. Takes probably 15 minutes, depending on the speed of your computer and your SD card. So with that, I have up here some samples that you can look at. I can answer questions specific to that. Is there any other? Yes, Al.
Yes, Mike, so just to kind of dovetail off what Easy said, because I am interested in my son, I think would really enjoy working on this. He's enjoying these projects that have been going on here. I think from a membership standpoint as well, it's these kind of projects that keep a club active, and we need more of them. So in that context of doing an event, and I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but if you could put together a bullet list of the things needed.
It's in your packet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it. I did look at it, I took pictures of it. I just want to make sure the question was asked about all the bits and pieces, what you should have. That way we can create something.
Sure,
for
for an order list. But there's a lot of items there may or may not be available. Again, that was off of Amazon, depending on sourcing. Not really tied to those particular part numbers, but we'll pretty much have to find what we can source.
Thank you, Frank.
I've got a good understanding of the hardware. I'm just sort of missing. So. When radio is. Talking, it can talk to another radio, I guess that's like 10 miles away, right? And they got the same setup, but what you're saying, what was saying about the digipeaters, so are there digipeaters that like retransmit that, or they send it over the internet, or how does that work?
Yeah, both actually, the actual digipeater, depending, like I connect with the KC1IZC in Connecticut. I'm in Agawam, so 15, 20 miles away, I'm hitting the repeater. There's other digipeaters which actually repeat those signals. And they are then propagated to other repeaters and other nodes.
So it retransmits, it hops along by radio to radio, like,
It can go radio to radio or through iGate, which is the internet.
oh, yeah.
So depending, like, I hit Dana via RF in Connecticut, and then that ends up getting retransmitted eventually to the internet as well.
Is that the same network as APRS? Or no?
Yeah,
It is?
depending on what you have, we do APRS, but Dana also has the actual WinLink servers as well.
Oh, so
For
it's
different frequency.
Is it the WinLink iGate system, you mean that this uses, or?
This uses APRS, iGate, but depending on what is crossed with other repeaters, they may provide multiple different functions.
And what was his called, KB1?
KB1AEV is Dana's.
AAB?
AEV,
Okay,
alpha, as he says, always eat vegetable.
I got it.
All right, other questions? No questions, any answer? Okay, go
Mike,
ahead.
other than MCOGs, what would you do with this?
Fun, hobby,
Well, I guess, but you could use the D-Star that's in that 705 and accomplish the same things.
it's good.
$1,000 versus $100?
You have the 705, why wouldn't you use this?
Well, it justifies having a biker.
Well,
No,
except that you would be
no,
able
this
to
is
have.
more tinker, more simple, lot less.
Well, I understand that, but a D-Star walkie-talkie would allow you to talk to anybody without sending emails and stuff.
Yeah, my 705 doesn't let me run all those modes at the same time. So something as simple as that, technician, soon to be technician, can get their feet wet and then grow accordingly. I mean, that's HF as well as, senior 70s. So again, you call it entry point, the way you get your feet wet.
Remember that technicians can do FT8 on 10 meters.
Right, I know.
Excuse me, Mike?
Yeah.
I believe the question was, how does this work with, it's useful as far as MCOM?
Well, it's useful for that, but other than MCOM,
Oh, okay.
having fun with it.
One of the guys down in Tennessee uses APRS for road races and stuff like that, and conventions, and we keep track of where everybody is by the location stuff, and be able to communicate with everybody in the group, and it's very handy.
But that's built into a lot of walkie-talkies.
Yeah, APRS is being put into a lot of radios, but if you wanna experiment, have fun building, you know. Computers, everybody's cross-referenced those multiple hobbies, if you will. And this gives you a way to get your feet wet in all spaces. It doesn't mean that, gee, I need this for any particular function. I did use this during our Aries simulated emergency tests in some capacity. So yes, it can be used, but again, it's to have more than anything, a lot of fun. So that's the main thing. And if you got a project build, you know, people spend a low investment and get a lot of fun out of it rather than having to fork over money for a big radio. So,
Again,
go ahead, Al.
it plays into, like I said, for my son. We can get kids down here, they can put these things together, they're gonna buy into it really, really quick once they understand how it works. And why it works.
Yeah, you don't need to do any soldering if you get pre-soldered devices. It's basically screwdriver, nut driver. Computer, you can have one computer that people can use as a station. You basically have, you know, have a lot of fun, a fun day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Everybody's free to come up and take a look.
Well, I'm just gonna sign off the club. I know it's Super Bowl weekend. Next meeting is gonna be March 6th. It's gonna be in Miller. Whiskey Bravo 1, Delta X-ray. It's gonna be presenting establishing your own remote station. Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Weather advisory, I'm gonna just mention possible snow tonight. And it's supposed to be extremely cold this weekend. So, please, be safe.
Thank you, Easy. I just wanna get that last piece. My notes.
That's the way to keep my final.
But.
Yeah. That's the way I go my life. I hope you did that.
Oh, I know.
It'll hurt me.
I didn't think that. Getting, go to the. So I got.
Like he feels like.
That's why you got my antenna. As soon as possible. Oh, yeah. Have a lot of rain or. That's one of your.